Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, we're talking to Stephen Wilkinson. He's the head of engineering for Hope Media in Sydney, Australia. He's joining us live from Sydney. We're talking about cybersecurity, a second lockdown in Sydney, and what they're doing about it, and some of the things about DAB+, like it comes in car radios. It's pretty cool stuff. From Sydney, Australia, Stephen Wilkinson is next on TWiRT. This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionic Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts. Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from this microphone to that light bulb back there, right there, at the top of the tower. And that one really did come from a tower. Hey, I'm Kirk Harnack in the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville, Tennessee, where it's a beautiful, hot and humid day, summer, very summer-like. Of course, it is August 12th, and in the Northern Hemisphere, this is pretty normal weather. Temperature's supposedly only about 90 degrees, but man, is it humid outside. It rained a little while ago. All right, enough about the weather in Nashville, Tennessee. Glad you could join us. And thanks a lot to Telos for affording me a couple hours on Thursdays to put together This Week in Radio Tech and bring you interesting people and information from the world of radio technology, and this time from literally all around the world. In fact, we were looking at the map and figuring out that my guest is just about 10,000 miles away. So let's bring him in and let's see how long the delay is. Stephen Wilkinson. Stephen, welcome into the show. How you doing?
Via satellite.
Here we go. Yeah. Go ahead.
Can you hear me on this satellite?
Yeah,
you got
sure
me?
You know the usual thing when the anchor throws it to the reporter who's way out in the field on satellite is the reporter goes,
"Yeah,
that's right, Bob. We're out here." But our delay's not too bad. Yeah, our delay's not too bad. Yeah. So, Stephen Wilkinson, you work with the folks at Hope Media and you do some consulting around Australia. Tell us about Steve Wilkinson and what you do there.
Yeah, so I'm the technical manager for Hope Media in Sydney, based in Sydney. But we have a management agreement with a couple of stations in other states, 96.5 in Brisbane and Salt 106.5 on the Sunshine Coast, which is a tiny little station. So I oversee the technology for all three organizations.
Very cool. And we're going to be talking about the things that you've been doing. Understand that, well, go ahead and tell me now before we take our first quick break. Lockdown. You went through the same kind of lockdown period that the U.S. did, although I kept hearing news for that Australia would just seem to be under more severe lockdowns than a lot of us in the U.S. But now you've got another period of lockdown, what, either in it or looming or what?
Yeah, so we're coming to the end of our I guess it's in Sydney's probably proper second lockdown, first one for this year. So it's we're coming to the end of the 7th week of lockdown. So, and it doesn't look like it's going to let up any time soon. So it's probably, they're saying the end of August, but it's not looking like it. We're just for Sydney, we're over 3,500 cases and 350 people a day getting infected. So it's not, the numbers aren't trending down, as they say.
Gotcha. Well, we'll hope the people end up doing well and this thing goes away and we eventually understand all about it. But that's not for us today. It's for us to live through it and keep on living and keep doing what we do for a living. One of the cool things about broadcasting is that broadcasting is, at least as far as the consumer is concerned, it's a no-touch enterprise, right? It's wireless. Yeah. You get to use your radio in your house or in your car, and you don't have to touch anything. You don't have to transact with somebody to use what we do for a living to consume the content that we make. So on the consumer side, it's pretty cool. But on the creation side, well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Some of the things that you, Stephen, have learned during COVID, and some of the extra things that you've been implementing, not only at your station, but at others, especially in terms of cybersecurity. I got to believe that there are bad guys, bad actors sitting at home, figuring out how to use their time and breaking into businesses' computer
Well, they
systems.
got more time on their hands, haven't they?
Yes, I think they do. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Our show is brought to you in part by our friends at Nautel, where they are continuing their Transmission Talk Tuesdays right here in the month of August. We have 3 Transmission Talk Tuesdays scheduled, and I hate to toot my own horn here, but I'm the guest coming up August the 17th. That is this coming Tuesday, and you want to go get registered for this. Now, there's couple more things, and it's not just me. Okay. Alex Hartman is going to be on the August the 24th Transmission Talk Tuesday about building with Raspberry Pi. And then August 31st, the topic is car dashboards and hybrid radio. Really interesting topics. I think the MPX over AES is pretty interesting. We're going to talk about that and other ways to get MPX to the transmitter side. Here's what you can do. Go to nautel.com/webinars. nautel.com/webinars and register. It's a really easy registration process. In fact, if you've already done it once, probably your browser remembers all the autofill stuff. It's just click, 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 and you're done. And Nautel is really good about just sending you a little reminder, you can download a thing to pop in your calendar, whether you use Outlook or whether you use Google Calendar. You can pop it in there. And then they'll give you a little reminder email, I think a day before and maybe even the day of. I find it unobtrusive and helpful and good to remind me that, there's a webinar coming up. And I better remember the one on on Tuesday the 17th, because I'm it. Me and Jeff Welton are going to be on that one. So check it out if you would. Transmission Talk Tuesday. This is a way that Nautel really is helping our industry and keeping engineers like me and like you well informed on what's going on in the industry. Now, sadly for Stephen Wilkinson, noon Eastern time in the U.S. is probably not a good time for Stephen.
No, they aren't. So many of these webinars I subscribe to, and I watch later, on demand later.
On demand later. That's right. How do you tell your sweet wife, hey, I got to be up at 2 a.m. to watch a webinar? I guess that doesn't happen very often, does it? No. And I'm not much of an early morning person, even though this is ridiculously early. But the things I do for you, Kirk. Just as a matter of context. Okay, so it's 4:07 in the Central Time Zone right now. It's 5:07 Eastern Time Zone. What time is it in Sydney, Australia right now? And what day is it? It's the future. It's 7:07 a.m. Friday. It's 7:07 a.m. on Friday. So you could probably go ahead and give me the Powerball numbers from it's Thursday night. 33, 7, 5. Good gosh. All right. Everybody has to. Hey, who won the Preakness in the third race? I want to put some money on a horse. All right. It doesn't work that way. Glue factory. All right. Oh. Yeah. So, hey, let's jump right into this stuff about what you're doing. I guess, all of us around the world had to start dealing with some lockdowns and social distancing or nobody can come in the studio depending on where you were over a year ago, probably in late March or maybe in April or certainly by late April. All around the world, we were doing that. And now you guys at Hope Media, and you've got live shows, live presenters on the air. Yeah. What kind of things did you learn before that you're now doing again? And maybe you can talk about what kind of things are you doing better now that it's the second time around for the social distancing and few, if anybody, coming into the studio. Well, fortunately for us, we're even in lockdown, we're classed as an essential service. So our staff are allowed, or on-air people are allowed to come into the building. But it's all about minimizing time in the building. So people come and do their shift and go home and prep at home, do pre-records, interviews with people at home. And so it's the on-air people and the techs that are in the building. Everybody else is at home.
it hasn't affected the broadcast as much this time, but we still have the facilities. People need remote access to their files and need to be able to, if they pre-record something, dump it into the system. And this last year we had to, we were scrambling to because lockdown last year was all of a sudden. I mean, I guess they're always all of a sudden, but last year we had to enable remote control for things and remote access more than what we had previously. This time we're ready. In some ways we're ready for it, and so people just sort of had to get back into that different sort of workflow for doing things at home. We provide all our on-air people with an audio interface and a mic, and so that they could record at home. Some of them have got those, little Rodecaster mixers, which have got, Bluetooth phone interfaces, that sort of thing, so people can record telephone interviews, while they're at home. Even we've had our breakfast has been a duo, and so to limit the number of people in the studio, so we only allow one person in a physical studio at a time. As a result of that, we alternate between studios. So, one shift's in one studio and then the next shift's in the other. And when we've had duos, we've been using two studios at once. The duos to separate them. But to be able to easily we've got contingencies in place that if announcers, on-air guys have to go to air from home, we've got systems set up with using web interfaces like cleanfeed and the Tyline codecs and apps and that sort of thing.
Hey, well, not that it would be an endorsement of any particular product. Maybe you're happy with some things, maybe you're not as happy with other things, but tell me about some of the specific pieces of equipment or software that you guys are putting to use, so at least we know that it can be put to use in a almost nobody in the studio situation. What kind of automation are you guys using there at Hope Media?
So we use RCS Zeta. So that has a external control called Zeta to Go. So our people can log into that and can actually control what's going to air. We mainly use it for in a voice track situation, so that they can remotely record a voice track. In Australia, we're a bit of a third world country when it comes to internet.
Really?
So even some people in Sydney, their internet is not that great, and so for our people to be able to do sort of live voice tracking into software like with Zeta to Go can be a bit problematic. So we sort of opted for just doing it as a pre-record voice tracking with because of having to deal with interesting internet.
Well, now just speaking of internet, because we're all curious, so are you in Sydney proper or in a suburb or where?
In Western Sydney, which is Sydney's a city of 5 million people. Where the studios are actually, I'm 7 k's away from the studios. 7 kilometers away. But we're Western Sydney, so which is probably about, driving is about 45 minutes in non-peak hour, 45-minute drive from the centre of Sydney, the Harbour Bridge and Opera House that you would know.
So I believe you're at home right now. You're in an office that you've created at home, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
What kind of internet? What internet technology do you have there at home?
So I was up until February last year. I still was only able to have ADSL, and I'm in I'm not in what we call the sticks. I'm not out in the middle of nowhere, but I could still only get ADSL, and in Australia we have what's called the NBN, which is the National Broadband Network, where they've tried to roll out fibre, or it's fibre to a node, so it's copper in the last 1 kilometre, supposed to be anyway, and so they've so that it's been very slow. It's a bit political as well, unfortunately, and so I just happen to live in a suburb that wasn't politically critical to get it in. So I've been was an early adopter of a new technology using 5G. So one of our providers has rolled out 5G home internet, and that's what I'm on now.
Okay. So it's wireless to your house.
Yeah. So fortunately I've got a cell tower that I can see from my backyard, from not that close, but it's a close cell tower, which has 5G, and they supply you with a modem, which has got a router in it, and so that's what I've been using. It can run beautifully most of the time. I can actually get up to sometimes 650 megabits down on the 5G, and anywhere from 50 to 150 upload speed. So it's pretty good.
Really awesome. Yeah. Oh, what about the radio? What about Hope Media? You've got a building there. You got a good sized tower there. What kind of internet service is available there? Because that's pretty critical. You got to have it good there, so that when your employees connect in, at least that end they don't have to worry about.
Yeah, well, that's been a work in progress over the years, and fortunately, for a number of years, 3 to 5 years, we've really invested in that area. So we have a fibre by one provider, a business fibre by one provider called Telstra, which is one of our major networks, which is a 100 megabit by 100 megabit connection. But we also have a second fibre, which actually one of the fibres runs down the street that we're in, and the other fibre actually comes from the other direction in the street, and it's actually a gigabit fibre, so it's 1,000 up and 1,000 down. So we've been very fortunate that we've been able to secure that over the last probably 3 to 5 years, and that has made our life for remote access a lot easier.
We're talking with Stephen Wilkinson. He is the head of engineering at Hope Media in Sydney, Australia, and he does his own consulting as well, and he does some work with some stations that Hope Media is managing and taking care of. I'm Kirk Harnack on This Week in Radio Tech. Stephen is going to be talking to us more in the coming minutes about the second lockdown, and I got a feeling that there are other places in the world that are going to probably have to put up with more lockdown time. So we may be going back to people not having people in the studios. Plus, Steve's going to be telling us about some clever solutions for good quality audio. He already mentioned cleanfeed, but there's another solution as well. And cybersecurity has been very tops on his mind. I have been myself looking for, what's a solution that we can provide, maybe some phishing email tests to employees to help get employees to not respond or to recognize phishing emails and not click on them. Plus, we're going to talk about a PIRAC. It's not what we think of in the U.S. Aunt B from Petticoat Junction is not involved with the PIRACs that Stephen's talking about. Plus, DAB is actually a thing in Australia, and I was surprised at what Stephen has told me about automobiles and DAB. So that's all coming up this week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack, and our show is brought to you in part by Broadcasters General Store and by Innovonics.
The Aaron 655 is the latest addition to the Innovonics family of rebroadcast receivers, designed specifically for FM broadcast translators, also referred to as relay transmitters. The Aaron 655 is unique as an uncompromising DSP-based HD radio and FM receiver combined with a powerful 3-band audio processor and dynamic RDS encoder. IP connectivity adds streaming capabilities, and a web browser interface gives you total remote control of the unit from any PC or mobile device. The Aaron 655 gives you maximum flexibility for program sources. Select program audio from analog FM, digital channels HD1 through 8, streaming sources, and analog or AES digital line inputs, all with assignable failover audio backup. The internal RDS encoder allows you to customize your RDS messaging. You can use incoming off-air RDS data, convert HD radio pad data to RDS, convert streamed metadata to RDS, or receive IP telnet data. Comprehensive audio processing includes gated and windowed AGC, a unique syllabic leveler, 3 bands of compression, and both wideband and independent HF limiting. Easy setup is achieved by using 10 factory presets and 10 customizable presets. The processor also supports day parting, allowing automatic preset changes to follow different programming formats throughout your broadcast day. The front panel has an OLED display and jog wheel with intuitive menus for easy setup, advanced control, and editing for all operating parameters. The Aaron 655 dynamic web interface gives you total remote control of the unit from any PC or mobile device. A comprehensive set of menus includes a quick overview of now playing info, input-output control, processor options, RDS encoder, alarms and notifications, SNMP settings, and much more. You can also listen to the live audio broadcast streamed through the web interface.
And you can get Innovonics products from Broadcasters General Store. They have a website, is bgs.cc, but you know what? Where they really shine is give them a phone call at 352-622-7700. You're going to want to have this on speed dial for Broadcasters General Store. They can give you sharp pencil quotes. Yep. You're going to save money. And they can tell you all about delivery, expected delivery, and when things are shipped. They have a whole computer system set up just for that, customized for them. And anyway, friendly people too. Yeah, really friendly. So give them a call at 352-622-7700. By the way, Innovonics, I had the very first broadcast product I ever bought in my life was probably at the age of 19. I was managing a radio station in Kentucky at the age of 19. And the very first thing I bought was an Innovonics AM audio processor for our station. And so Ben Barber, the CEO of Innovonics, is going to be our guest on an upcoming show of This Week in Radio Tech. And he's going to tell us about some of their newer designs and some of the things that they're bringing out. So listen up for that. All right. I'm Kirk Harnack. It's our 557th show of This Week in Radio Tech. Woo, that's a lot. And Stephen Wilkinson is our guest here. Stephen, welcome in, or welcome back to the show. Let's see, what we wanted to talk about some of the specific things that you used. You mentioned Zeta to Go has been a thing. You've mentioned that the Roadcaster, some of your people have Roadcasters, and that helps them get more audio in and out of their show than just their microphone, maybe a telephone through the Bluetooth interface. What are some other specific things that people are using? Did you assign them laptops, or are they using their own computers? Software, you mentioned cleanfeed. What else?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixture, because it's interesting the shortage on trying to track, acquire laptops at the moment with the parts shortage around the world. So that has been we're a bit of a Dell house, that's sort of what we use, and there's been a sort of bit of a worldwide shortage on supply. So where we can, we supply people with a laptop for home. Other people have their own really good laptops, so we allow that for them to record at home. A few of them do their own sort of podcasts and things as well, that their own private sort of stuff, so they already have quite a bit of gear. One of our breakfast co-hosts, he had his own set up with a Roadcaster and little studio at home, and that was a big help, and all he just needed to be able to get live audio back to the station, and so that's where we use cleanfeed. The other thing that we've done is also we're a organization, Microsoft organization, so we use Teams across our whole organization, which is Microsoft version of Zoom, and it's sort of integrated everything, chat and a whole lot of things as part of it. So in the tests that we've done, we've found that it actually prioritizes audio. So the audio quality is actually very good from Teams, and the video side of it, it's probably, I think we've looked at it, it's about 8 frames a second from the video side, but audio is very clean and it's like video will play up before any glitches in the audio. Whereas, we found with Zoom, video picture quality is very good, and that's prioritized, but the audio will glitch a lot more readily.
Interesting.
And yeah. So we've been using that. We have used that for live to air sort of situations, as well as a lot of our guys are using it for interviews. They're able to, send the link to the person they're going to interview, and preferably that they have a headset or something, even if it's just a USB headset at the other end. Otherwise, sometimes they can sound like they're doing the interview in the bathroom.
This is always a problem. Is getting, if you can just get a microphone close to your mouth. That's the biggest thing. And then, of course, if you can get in a room that has some padding and not a kitchen with tile or, as you said, a bathroom, don't do the interview from your shower, even if you're fully clothed. It doesn't sound good. I'm curious about microphones and interfaces. There are a number of microphones on the market now that have the USB interface built into the body of the microphone. So you don't even need an external box. You just wire a USB connection from the mic into the USB connection on the computer. And typically these mics also have a headphone jack right on the microphone. So you just plug, a little 3.5 millimeter headphone jack into that, and you've got a sound card built into there. Have you found any of those to be useful or good, or are you using external pro mics with a Focusrite or some other kind of interface?
Yeah, so generally, mainly because we already have quite a lot of microphones, we generally use the Rode microphone, the Rode brand, which is actually Australian made and manufactured, and we use the Rode Broadcaster in our studios. It has that RE20 look, but it's actually a condenser microphone. So that's what we use in our on-air studio. So we have quite a few spares. So we generally we've loaned them out to our on-air guys if they don't have something at home. Audio interfaces, they've most of the time we've got like the little a Rode. I think it's called the A1 or AI1 audio interface, and but we've also used the little Behringer ones, and Focusrite, and even Presonus. So they're all generally pretty good, especially for voice tracking. You're not recording an album or some great vocal line. So that's generally what we do. If someone's and this is sort of my advice in on air studios as well. If the acoustics isn't that great, we generally look at a dynamic version. They have the sort of they've even got now Rode have a mic called the pod mic, which is sort of been used for podcasters, and but it's a dynamic mic, and being a dynamic mic, it really, if the acoustics of the room isn't great, it's not as sensitive to pick up the sound of the room. So we've provided that to some people that their rooms aren't quite that great. That's generally what we've supplied to our on-air guys.
Gotcha. And again, to get audio to the station, at least live audio, you've used a combination of, you said cleanfeed. That's either free or there's a paid version of cleanfeed, or Microsoft Teams. When do you decide when to use cleanfeed, which is kind of a one-to-one situation? I don't think it's a conference. So you have to provide the mix minus and the conferencing, if you will, within your own audio console. But Teams,
well, actually,
go ahead.
Yeah, actually, the paid version of cleanfeed, you can actually have multiple people coming into it, and it actually generates mix minus itself, or does some amazing echo cancelling sort of technology. So we've had we've had, especially last year when we were in lockdown, We had one of our breakfast guys would be at home, and with a roadcaster, he'd bring in the second co-host from his home on cleanfeed, and then bring in a guest on another cleanfeed channel, and they'd all record it and be all together on the one feed. So that was it's worked pretty well.
Now, in your situation, you did mention that you could have people at the studio, and so you had I guess we would call a board operator at the studio. What, inserting commercials or announcements in the show, or would the talent from home pop those things in?
No, generally it would be the panel. Panel operator we call it, and it's if it's a duo, sometimes it'll be one of the duo would be in the studio doing the paneling. But we have, and we are prepared that if lockdown goes more strict, then we would just have a panel op in the studio. I'm still a bit like someone to be there, physically be there. A lot can be done remotely, but as I said, the way that it's not necessarily the station's internet, but the way that anybody else's internet can be unreliable at times. Especially like we're doing an outside broadcast, or remote, as you guys would call it. We generally always have somebody in the studio as a panel op.
Now, one reason that I got to know you, Stephen, was because I work for Telos Alliance, and you have bought some Axia consoles some years ago. There's different ways to remote control an Axia console or the mixers, or create your own faders. What are you guys doing there if you do remote control your consoles?
Yeah, so we have the Element consoles. I think since about 2007 we've had Axia. So we're an early adopter in Australia. I think we're probably about the third station in Australia.
Almost 14 years ago. Wow.
Yeah. And they've held up pretty well. And we're in the process of upgrades, but we have the soft surface software for the Element. That's what it's called, isn't it? Yeah. So what we do is we remote into a specific machine and able to control the desk that way. Generally, it's either a production or a tech person that would do that. It's probably a little bit complex for our on-air guys to play with, but that's sort of how it's been helpful even from a tech point of view, to if someone rings up and says, "Oh, something's not working right," and you're able to see that they haven't pushed the right button, or something hasn't been assigned correctly.
And I believe that just to let people know, technically how this is done, Axia has this software called Soft Surface, and you can remote control other Axia consoles with that. It was never designed, though, to actually run remotely. In other words, what you really want to do, it was designed to run on the same LAN as the console. So what you really want to do is run it on some computer in the radio station, and then use a remote desktop sort of solution to remotely control it there. Now, my employer, Axia, they have some new solutions that are out now that really do let you, actually control from anywhere. And one of them is called IQS. And that actually lets you, use your phone or tablet or laptop on just a port 80 internet connection to control the mix of a console. So you're not using remote desktop remotely. You're actually, controlling the mixer remotely. So, hey, coming up, we're talking to Stephen Wilkinson, Director of Engineering over there at Hope Media in Sydney, Australia. Coming up, I'm really interested in the topic of cybersecurity, because there's been plenty of phishing attacks, and Stephen has helped prepare his team. In fact, he's got some interesting stories about his team and their, how they did in a phishing test. Also, he's got a couple of ideas that you and me, other engineers, should make sure we have implemented to at least reduce our attack vector, if you will, our attack surface to phishing or other malware attacks. Plus, we are going to talk about Pyrax and DAB Plus in just a few minutes. This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you in part by my friends at Angry Audio. Suncaster, got to warn you, we're not going to do the Bluetooth audio gadget. I'm sorry that I popped that in the email to you. That was an old copy paste. We're going to talk about this thing called the headphone disconnector. You've seen me talk about this before in a couple other episodes. They just brought this out. They have them in stock right now. This is the headphone disconnector. So you can get this in either 1/4-inch tip ring sleeve, right? There's the female part that you plug your headphones into, and you plug this into your audio console or headphone amp. In fact, I just happen to have a headphone amp right here. This is the headphone gizmo, and you just plug that in right there to the headphone amp. Now, when your talent gets up and walks away, assuming that they're in the studio, they get up and walk away, and they forget to take the headphones off, bam, it just comes right apart, and it's just magnetic. It'll easily go right back together like that. Don't you wish gas pumps were like that? You've seen people pull away from a gas pump. Ooh, they still have the hose in the car. They have safety disconnects too. Anyway, check it out. This is the headphone disconnector from Angry Audio. There it is, headphone disconnector. angryaudio.com is the website. And while you're thinking about headphones from Angry Audio, they do have this headphone gizmo. I like this one because you won't snag your pantyhose on it. This screws up underneath the console to the bottom of the desk. And on the back, it's got RJ45 connectors. This is the Studio Hub standard. So this is not Ethernet. This is just left and right balanced audio. Sounds really good. And you can get your power going in here, or you can daisy chain these and power up to, I think, 3 of these, or you can power about 4 of these. This is the Studio Hub design of the headphone amplifier in the Decora front end here. So it'll mount very easily wherever a Decora box would mount. And then, of course, Angry Audio is your source for all the Studio Hub stuff, like Studio Hub adapters that make all your wiring go so much quicker and easier. Check it out, angryaudio.com. When you talk to your dealer and you want some Studio Hub stuff, hey, insist on real, actual Studio Hub. Really, seriously. They've been making that stuff. They invented it, Studio Hub did. And Angry Audio is where you get it now. They make it, they own it, and they still make it really, really well. Thanks a lot, Angry Audio, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Hey, we're also brought to you by Max Connect Wireless. And I answered a question from a fellow broadcaster just this week about Max Connect Wireless. He said, I've got to have a solution that absolutely works in a 4G LTE area, and I need a fixed IP address. And I said, call Josh Bone. Call Josh Bone at Max Connect Wireless. And that's what Gary Morrill advises too. Here's Gary.
I'm Gary Morrill, Midwest Regional Director of Engineering for Alpha Media. When I first spoke with Josh Bone about Max Connect, he told me they'd work great for remote transmitter sites where connectivity was a challenge. And he's absolutely right. We even have sites where we're using this as a backup to our STL using Max Connect's dual carrier option, and it works perfectly. We also have times where we need to be able to get out to a venue where it's kind of challenging because everybody and his brother is trying to stream video at the same time, like at a big sporting event. And you know what? Our data gets through every time because it's prioritized packet data. It works for us. It'll work for you. Max Connect. Check it out.
I've got one of them too, right here. The Max Connect wire. This was the Pep Wave. Gary was holding up the one from Cradle Point, but it's not the modem. It's not the LTE modem that does that is the key to Max Connect. It's the SIM card from Max Connect Wireless, and that's why you get the prioritized 4G LTE data from Max Connect Wireless. Check them out. You'll be glad you did. Okay. We're talking to Stephen Wilkinson, Director of Engineering, Head of Engineering at Hope Media in Australia, and he's in Sydney in the western suburbs. We've been promising to talk a little bit about cybersecurity, that the cybersecurity bad guys have been twiddling their thumbs a bit. Actually, they haven't been twiddling. They've been busy because they haven't been able to go anywhere. So they've been writing code. And you mentioned, now I have done some work for a big company as a part-time employee. I've done weather at a NBC affiliate here in Nashville, and that NBC affiliate is owned by a rather large broadcasting concern, and they have a big IT department. And so they had, the ability to do testing and test their employees about phishing scams. In fact, they even have an annual quiz you're supposed to take to help you identify or make sure you are aware that these scams are out there. And I thought, man, I'd love to do this for my own radio station. So I've got, we've got 18, 20 employees or so in Mississippi and Hawaii and American Samoa. I guess we have close to 30 employees, and I'd like to be able to test them, to get them the idea of don't click on this, and actually, score them and see how well they do. Stephen, you've got some experience here. Tell us about what you've done to help your employees recognize phishing scams.
Yeah, well, we look after all the office IT as well as the broadcast IT. So we're not big enough to have separate departments. So we have to be across all aspects of IT, and so in Sydney we have probably about 45 employees, and so we it's been seeing a trend of phishing emails coming in, and it's interesting. Yeah, we might get a couple come through, but there's literally thousands that get blocked by our other systems. And so we've been concerned this year about phishing emails and cyber attacks in general. One of our big networks, TV networks, March this year, had ransomware, which actually took down the network, especially on the East Coast. So across all media, it was highlighted that people needed to be a bit more aware of these sort of phishing and ransomware emails. So we decided to do a incognito test. So our staff didn't know that there was going to be a phishing test. And so Trend Micro actually have a facility where you're able to connect to them and create these phishing emails. And they have actually quite a number of templates for your usual sort of eBay type ones, or PayPal, or in Australia Post, and which is our main postal service. Those sort of emails, you get the email from your postal service that says, hey, there's a package coming for you. It's going to be delivered, but you need to click on this link and tell us that you're going to be home, or something like that. So we decided to run a test and test our staff. So this was just the Sydney staff. So we, over a 2 to 3 week period, we sent out 107 emails, and which were phishing emails, and they were varied. They were all different. Interesting enough, we had to allow some of them to come through our system because our system would have actually blocked them normally.
Oh, okay. Well, good for the system, but bad for the test.
Yeah. So we had to sort of whitelist them, if you like, to come through for that period of time, and we knew where they were coming from and that sort of thing. But out of the 107 emails, I think it was about 13 got clicked on. So it was opened, and then people clicked on the link in them, about 13 people. So 107 out of 13 is probably pretty good odds. Unfortunately, 4 people actually, because when they clicked on the link, it took them to a page to say, please log on and put in your details, username and password. And unfortunately, 4 people did do that. And so we
all it takes is one. All it takes is one to bring you down.
That's right. So we didn't want to embarrass those people, so we had a little quiet chat to them, just to say, hey, you shouldn't do that, and if you do, please let the tech department know, so that we can take action. So that's probably even, unfortunately, the worst bit was that they didn't actually tell the tech department that they'd done that. And so it was an interesting exercise to see how people react. So as a result, we've presented that to at one of our monthly staff meetings. We've presented that to the staff. And so we're going to be running some more training programs for our staff, which will be pretty much mandatory that everybody attends, and so that they are learning more of what to look out for and what not to do. So.
There's a rule of thumb that a lot of people use, and that is, if you didn't go looking for it yourself, if you didn't actually go, hey, I want an insurance quote. Well, don't just take the email that comes in and says, hey, insurance quotes. No, go yourself and look for insurance quotes. If you didn't go looking for it, don't click on it. And of course, people, forget that. They agree that, yeah, okay, I won't click on anything that I didn't go looking for myself. And yet they do it anyway because it looks inviting, or it looks like it's safe because it's from Amazon or it's from their bank if they're banking with a popular bank.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, one of the things that we suggest is that if people, if it is like an Amazon or PayPal or something like that, don't just click on the link or copy and paste it. Actually go and type in, paypal.com or whatever and log in that way rather than clicking a link. That way you know that you're going to the genuine site. Because it's, I mean, some of them are pretty genuine, and they, it could be just that they have an interest, change one letter or change one character in the URL to go to the phishing site.
Right. Yeah. And big companies like Amazon, sure, they buy up all the similar sounding URLs that they can, like Amazon.com, right? With an E on the end. And I think for me, one of the most convenient things to do, I get an email from Amazon that says your shipment is delayed, or your shipment's coming today, or it's been delivered. To check on it, a lot of these companies, their apps are so good anyway that I'll just go to the app on my phone. And because the app is going to go to the right place, if you're actually using the app and not using a website. So that's one way. So what one of the things that has been a problem in the past, I think it's less so now, but it seems like it used to be that when you installed Microsoft Windows as an OS in a computer, by default you were administrator, and that was a big attack vector. Stephen, what do you do for your offices and radio facilities to make sure that people using their computers are not running as administrator, but they're running at a lower level of user?
Yeah, well, we use what's called the Essential 8 principles. I don't know whether you've heard of that.
No.
So they're sort of IT sort of principles in that, one, you restrict the admin rights on your laptops or your desktops. So, the user can't make changes to any configuration on the machine. The other thing is what we call application control. So, they prevent, running exes and scripts on their machines. Mm-hmm. And a big one with anything is multi-factor authentication. There's so many websites that we connect to daily, sales CRMs and donor databases, and and most of them are in the cloud or somewhere. So, which means that then anybody else can access it from anywhere generally. So, multi-factor authentication, that's where if it's asks you it sends a code to your, or a pin to your mobile phone, and you have to put that in as a second step rather than just logging on. So that's a big one. Again, user application hardening. So we configure people's browsers via like firewall and that sort of thing to block any sort of ads or suspect websites. So so even if someone does click on some of the phishing sort of things, because it's a dodgy website, Australian term, dodgy website, then the firewall, if they're in our network, will block that as well. So that's one of the things. Microsoft macros, so disabling macros in Word documents and things like that. And then it's part of it is just regular maintenance of patching applications, patching operating systems. And then the big one is backups, doing backups. So like, daily backups and off-site backups. Mm-hmm. So backing up all your data. We back up daily to we have a room in a second building on our property, basically a back garage, and which is sort of our disaster recovery room, and that has servers and storage in it. So we back up to that room, so that's a separate building to the main radio building. But we also back up to the cloud, and also back up to removable drives. So each week drives are taken off site to one of the tech's house, just so that we've got and it's all encrypted. So we've got a week-old data at worst, but it's backing up to multiple places is a real key. And so they're sort of the main principles that we use.
Are you using some off-the-shelf backup solution, or something you came up with yourself? What are you doing?
No, we use Veeam, VEEAM, Veeam. So it's it's not cheap, but this isn't something that you should skimp on. So it does very good incremental backups and down to file base. Like you can restore down to a file and quite easily find it. Generally, that's the hard thing, is trying to find what you want to restore.
Do you feel like
it can actually?
I'm sorry. Do you feel like using that solution? I apologize, talking over each other here. It's the distance. Yeah. Do you feel like if you had a ransomware attack that was somewhat successful, would your backup be able to? Could you restore things from the backup and then be back?
Yes. Well, yeah, because the Veeam software also we run virtual servers as well, and it takes whole backups of the virtual servers, and you can actually very, very quickly restore a whole virtual server, or actually pretty much run a virtual server from a backup, which as in run it, turn it on from the backup. So it is very good software.
Good deal. Well, thanks for those tips. We're going to run out of time here, so let's quickly move to this notion of a Pi rack. Pi being PIE. It stands for something. We don't talk about this. We don't say this. We don't have this concept quite in the U.S. anyway. I'm familiar with it only because I got to work in it internationally a fair amount with Telos. What is Pi?
So in Australia at transmitter sites, if we get hungry, we've got a meat pie and sauce, ketchup that we can just be there on hand, and so that's where we keep our pies, in our pie rack at the transmitter site.
Oh, good God! You say that. I've been in Taiwan, and in the server rack, in the rack room, they would leave some snacks. They were in bags. They leave snacks there. I said, why are these snacks here? Oh, that's because when we're gone, if there's any, spirit being, whatever, taking care of the rack, they'll have something to eat. They won't be upset with us. So it's an insurance policy for them. But you're not talking about actual meat pies or cherry pies or apple
pie rack. Yeah, I think it originated from the UK, because we're heavily influenced. Australia is a bit of a melting pot. We're influenced by the UK and the US in our broadcast terminology. And so a Pi rack is program input equipment. Input equipment.
That still doesn't, I mean, I'm in broadcast. That still doesn't tell me much. What does that mean? Program input equipment.
Well, so it's where the program comes from before it goes to the transmitter. So it's like your STL receivers, your codecs, or if you process at the radio if you process at the transmitter site, that's where your processor is, and it's all that, or switching between different audio feeds. We have audio feeds coming from our we use micro MPX, and so we have MPX coming from that, as well as STLs, and so all of that program audio is coming into that rack, and is then can be switched to the transmitter.
Okay. All right. So we have this in the US. We just don't call it that. We just call it the rack at the transmitter, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
So you get a more specific phrase that refers to that equipment at the transmitter site that takes whatever format is coming in, whether it's MPX or left and right audio, whether it's a codec or an STL or phone lines or whatever it may be. It preps that for, and so I guess if you have an RDS encoder at the transmitter site, that would be it'd be in the same rack anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be
Now,
all there.
and years ago when I saw Pi racks or racks advertised as Pi racks, they also typically had a patch bay in there because you may have audio coming from different sources available in an emergency.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's patch bay. Generally these days it's either an AES patch bay or a MPX, composite patch bay.
Gotcha. All right. Last topic before we go to our final break, and that is DAB. Now, see, in Australia, you guys don't have HD radio like we do in the US and a couple other places. You've got a standard that's DAB, and I think you guys went with the slightly improved version, the DAB Plus, which lets you use codecs that are better than MPEG Layer 2. Am I right about that?
Yeah, so it's a AAC plus. That's where the plus comes from for DAB plus. So it's AAC algorithm that's used.
So this is interesting. So it's how did that work out politically? I understand something about if you were a radio station, if you were a broadcaster, you were entitled to some channel on a DAB transmission system too. Is that right? You had to pay for it, but you were entitled to it.
Yeah, so it was when it first started back in 2009, I think it was. So the it's sort of government legislated. So every existing license, AM or FM license, in the capital cities, because it was only rolled out to the capital cities. So in Australia, we're a country nearly the size of America, but 25 million people is all we have, and there's a lot of emptiness in the middle, and so capital cities. So there's five. There was 5 capital cities to start with, and so Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide, and Perth, which is all the way over there on the other side, and West Coast, and so existing capital city broadcasters that were AM, FM, commercial, public radio, or our government stations, as well as community, which the stations that I'm involved in are classed as community, not-for-profit, non-coms, I guess you would call them, and that were metropolitan coverage. So community radios in Australia is that you have metropolitan coverage stations, so high powered, and then you have your sort of suburban community stations as well, the little 200-watt transmitters, that sort of thing. So so the metro stations were all given access to DAB, and in metropolitan, especially in Sydney. So it was then depended on how much ERP power that you had on your FM. You were given so much bandwidth, because of course DAB is pretty much, it's just a 1 megabit data stream that's transmitted, and so it's made up on that one data stream is all the different stations are multiplexed together and transmitted as one data stream on a transmitter. And so the commercial stations were given 128 kilobits of bandwidth, and the communities, because we're less power, were given 64 kilobits of bandwidth on DAB. In Sydney, because of the number of stations, we actually have 3 multiplexes. So 3 transmitters, DAB transmitters. Because with DAB, it's one transmitter, or the 3 transmitters doing one power, one coverage. So to make it fair, they made it that they would limit stations by the bandwidth.
Gotcha. Because they all have the same coverage, but it's different bandwidth for different stations. And we could do a whole show on DAB, because we're unfamiliar with this mostly in the U.S. and how that works on a cooperative basis or a government mandated basis, how the transmitter sites are governed, taken care of, maintained, and so forth. And we don't have time for that now, but there is one thing that we have, the last thing I want to ask you before we take our final break, and that is, in the U.S., more and more cars come with HD radio, and it's been a 20-year rollout, but more and more of them have them now. That's good. But in Australia, tell me about car radios coming with DAB plus capability.
Yeah, well, most new cars now have actually DAB in them, whether it's what we call Hyundai, was it Hyundai?
Hyundai, yeah.
Hyundai, yeah, Hyundai, Kia, most levels of cars these days. It used to be that the basic model didn't have it, and then sort of the mid-level did, or it had to be the higher level that had DAB. But it is pretty common. I mean, there could be some exceptions, but most new cars now do have DAB included in them. Even Toyotas and Subarus, all of them, have DAB.
So is there a display in the car? Is the display distracting at all with album art and title and artist? Or what's that look like?
No, it's not. It's we've had RDS information for a long time, and a lot of cars have had that for a while. But the album art, some of the radios you actually have to push a particular setting to be able to see the album art or that sort of thing. So it's not as in your face generally.
Well, I'd love to hear more about how that works. When I was in Australia last, I got a little portable DAB radio and got to play with that. And sure enough, album art, title and artist information came up, and I thought it was kind of interesting. The radio was just DAB. It didn't pick up any FM or AM. What frequency band is DAB operating on in Australia?
So in Sydney, as an example, our TV, which digital TV, is in the 200 megahertz. So it's around the 205 megahertz is where it's VHF in Sydney, and DAB is actually in the smack bang in the middle of the TV band. So it's at 205. It's like 100 because of the amount of bandwidth. TV is like 177 megahertz or so up to 200. It's what we call channel. It's on channel 9 on VHF, channel 9 A, B, and C because it's VHF. And then you've got TV on the 10 and 11 and 6 and 7 and 8, sort of where digital TV.
Since it is VHF, it's actually got reasonable building penetration. It's not up in the gigahertz area. It's down in the couple hundred megahertz. So that's pretty good for building penetration.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So it's pretty good. Most of our new tunnels have DAB retransmission in them as well. With over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of infrastructure work. Sydney's got, I don't know, about 8 tunnels now, or something like that around, so you can get around the city. And so a lot of the new tunnels that have been built actually have DAB retransmission in them too, which is nice.
We're talking with Stephen Wilkinson, head of engineering at Hope Media in Sydney, Australia. I really thank Stephen for getting up early in Sydney and joining us. And he's not even asleep. And he got dressed and everything. Hey, Stephen, you know our friends over at Broadcast Bionics, don't you? You know these guys?
Yeah. We have phone box. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, they've got a camera product, and we're going to play a little ad for them right now. I want you at home to watch this too. Camera One from Broadcast Bionics.
Camera One from Broadcast Bionics. Designed to bring video to your audio content. Visualizing radio and podcasts for social media. Camera One can automatically create, capture and brand professionally switched video for live streaming or upload, making your production shareable. Control and configure using a web browser on any device. Camera One is available as a 4-camera or 8-camera system using the Blackmagic A10 Mini range, including the A10 Mini Extreme. You can use cameras to suit your studio and your budget. You'll need 1 camera for a studio wide shot and usually 1 camera per microphone. A standard multi-channel sound card or IP driver monitors audio from each studio microphone, and we work natively with Axia systems. Ideally, this will be a post-fader feed from each mic, although you can use pre-fade audio or a mic split if that's all you have available. These audio levels are used to intelligently switch the video feed when each contributor is talking. You can also group microphones together into one shot and use the audio from a mixer's aux bus. You can use Camera One's auto switch feature, or disable it and switch using the on-screen buttons or the buttons on the ATEM. Recordings can automatically start when you tell the system you're on the air. This on-air indication can be linked to your studio's red lights via IP or an Avantec ADAM GPIO interface. You can quickly browse all the videos that have been automatically created during your broadcast, download them and post. Camera One is a user-installable system. You'll need a good spec Windows 10 PC, i7 with plenty of storage and 16 gig of RAM. It's better if this machine isn't used for anything else. Remember, you can control the software in a web browser on another device on your network. Camera One, a thrifty way of creating scroll-stopping video from your show or podcast from Broadcast Bionics.
Scroll stopping is right, and thrifty is right too. Camera One from Broadcast Bionics at bionic.radio. That's their website, bionic.radio, and check them out. Really appreciate Broadcast Bionics and their really clever software that helps you take your content, either create content or take content you already created and repurpose it for social and other purposes. Really good stuff. All right. Hey, in our waning few minutes with Stephen Wilkinson, and once again, I've forgotten all about warning Stephen that I need a tip of the week. Although, Stephen, you've watched enough of the show.
I should have thought about it. Yeah, I know.
You've watched enough shows.
I thought about it yesterday, and I thought, I need to. He's going to ask me about a tip of the week, and then I didn't think about it.
Oh, gosh. So as an engineer, I'm always looking for resources, things I can go to. And I'll offer one tip. And if during my time of ordering from the menu to the waiter, maybe you can think of what you want to eat. Is what I used to do. No, you go first so I can think about what the heck I want. I got to hand it to my colleagues at my employer at Telos Alliance. They have a support website that is so incredibly useful now that it will answer probably 80% of support questions just by going to it. And I'm not getting paid to talk. Well, I am getting paid by Telos, but not on this show to talk about it. And that is support.telosalliance.com. I know a lot of you have Telos gear, whether it's Telos, Omnia, Axia gear, 25/7 gear, maybe linear acoustic gear, or Minnetonka Audio. If you've got a question about something, or you're trying to figure out how does this work, or how do I install this, or what happens if this breaks, probably, just like you've learned by Googling something, probably somebody else has asked this question before. Probably somebody else has had this problem or question. So if you go to support.telosalliance.com, and there's a place there where you can just type in your plain language question. And of course, it's keyword oriented. So if you've got a question about Windows 10 and an IP audio driver, then you type that in, Windows 10 IP audio driver, and you'll see a list of support articles. And these are written, these support articles. This is not an FAQ. An FAQ, oftentimes, that's the question that the manufacturer wanted you to ask, right? That's the question that the manufacturer wanted to answer. Okay. These questions and answers in support.telosalliance.com, these are based on actual support calls coming in. So these are our support people at Telos Alliance writing articles to answer the most fundamental, the most frequent questions that come in. So you type in, Windows 10 IP audio driver, and you're going to see what problems people have or questions people have about installing, maintaining, modifying, configuring the IP audio driver. And it's really, really helpful. It has saved me plenty of time on the phone with my own colleagues at Telos. And sometimes they'll tell me, hey, have you looked at support.telosalliance.com? Type in this and you'll oftentimes my friend Brian Jones will say, Kirk, I just wrote an article about that last month. So anyway, check it out. That's my tip of the week because it really is very, very helpful. All right. I've given Stephen as much time as I possibly can here. Stephen, do you have a tip for us?
I was going to say, Yeah, the guys' support have always been great at helping me. I've been doing Axia Livewire stuff for a long time now, since 2007, and they've always been helpful. And that the Axia IP driver, it's not the IP driver's fault. Usually, it's Windows does an update or makes a change. So the poor guys trying to keep up with that is hard. My tip of the week is just on the cybersecurity aspect. The one thing I thought of that I didn't get to mention before was your broadcast LAN, your broadcast network. So, your playout software network. I think it's very important to try and segregate that from the internet. So, to try and stop any, your on-air people can't, on your, say, in our example, Zeta machine, start browsing the internet on your Zeta machine. It's best to try and segregate your networks, or at least disable any way of your on-air system from having access to the outside world with the playout workstations and servers. So that's my tip of the week.
Hey, if I could dovetail onto that, I will for a minute. One of the things that I like for my Axia, my AOIP network, to have access to the internet, maybe to get to an NTP server. I know I could run that locally, but let's say that I want to do a software update, and it's easier if I can maybe get that to have some outside access. But I don't want access coming in. I don't want to do any port forwarding. I want none of that. I just want to reach out, get something, and be done. And many routers, if you know what you're doing, you can configure a port on your router to have internet access, but not access to anything else in the router, right? You can do that. And honestly, I haven't taken the time to learn how to do that, say, in a MikroTik router with Router OS. I see articles and, it's a little bit beyond me. There's an easy way to get this done. Take a router and hang that onto your Axia network, on your AOIP network, whether it's Ravenna, Dante, Axia, WheatNet, whatever it may be. Take your Livewire network, go into a LAN port on that router, then go from the WAN port on that router to a LAN port on your business router that has internet access. Now, your firewall needs to, of course, be configured, probably the default configuration, which doesn't let anything come in, but it lets things go out. And 9 times out of 10, this will work. It's a cheap and easy way to get you outside access. And I'm not saying it is the ultimate safe, super safe way to do it, but for most people, it's going to be just fine. It's going to give your devices on your AOIP network access to the outside. Don't open ports. This is just for getting out, getting something, and getting done. If you need to occasionally, get a browser out there or something like that. I've done that here at my office because I just am not interested in learning enough to configure another port on my router for internet access only, and not access from my business network. So that's my piece of advice. You may agree with it or disagree with it, but the two router method can work.
That's a good workaround. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because different brands do things in different ways. We run FortiGate firewalls, and they're not simple things to configure.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, Stephen Wilkinson, thank you so much. I appreciate you getting up early and joining us here on This Week in Radio Tech. Give my best to your family and all your colleagues at Hope Media, would you?
I will. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And thanks to Suncast, who's been producing today's show. Thank you, Suncast, for another job well done. And thank you for listening. Thank you for your positive comments. We get emails in, and sometimes I'm on the phone with somebody. They say, oh, by the way, we watch your show. We watch This Week in Radio Tech. So thank you so much for the positive feedback. I so appreciate it very, very much. We've got great shows coming up for you in the coming weeks. Yes, I've been working to get more Sean Kelly. Sean Kelly is my guest next week. He's going to be here to talk about some amazing virtualized operations. And then coming up in a few weeks, we've got George Whittam. George is like, he's engineer to the stars, building voiceover studios for all kinds of people. It's just amazing what George does. So that's coming up in September, and lots more between now and then. All right, we got to go. We're going to see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye, everybody.